Okay. Good evening, everyone. The Board of School Trustees of Lebanon Community School Corporation is meeting this evening at 7. Sorry, I've got a little feedback. This meeting is a meeting of the school board for the purpose of conducting corporate business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Will be time for public participation as indicated by the agenda. The meeting site is fully accessible. Any person requiring further accommodation should contact the superintendent at the school corporation's central office. Okay, I will call the meeting to order now. Everyone could please stand. We are going to observe a moment of silence, and at that time, the secretary will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, everyone is present. Means we have a quorum. Mission statement, Mr. Parks.
Lebanon Community School Corporation will cultivate and reach every student by influencing and enriching their lives through the power of education, and to do so in a positive and safe learning environment.
Thank you. Okay, before we move on to item 2, unfortunately, I'm not able to be there with you in person this evening, and that causes some logistical issues and such. So I am going to ask Mrs. Hutchison, Vice President, to facilitate the meeting from here. So, Mrs. Hutchison, can you continue with item 2 and following, please?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mrs. Keith. We need an approval of minutes from the October 19th regular board meeting and the November 9th special session. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments about that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. Next is consent agenda staff matters for classified, certified, and ECA. Dr. Milliman.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. I'm pleased this evening to bring for recommendation under our classified staff one custodial position, a instructional assistant position, one high school athletic secretary position, one high school secretary position, and one long-term substitute. For our certified recommendations this evening, Principal Mackenzie Lacrone, Central Elementary, is recommending Hope Herod for the temporary special education position at Central. This is to fill the previously approved maternity leave for Kristen Nestor. Mr. O'Rourke is recommending Molly Murphy for the temporary visual arts position at the high school. This is also to fill a previously approved maternity leave at the high school. And congratulations and our thanks to Bob Gould, who has submitted his letter of retirement effective at the end of the first semester of the 2021-2022 school year. Mr. Gould's been with us since 1986. So we thank him for his service, and we'll do that a little bit more formally later. That's all I have for staff matters recommendations this evening.
Okay. Did we take them all together? Or do we need to take these together?
Oh, did I forget my ECAs? I did. I forgot an ECA. I'm sorry. Thank you for pointing that out. Mrs. Moore at Prairie Worth Elementary is recommending Kristen Hike as the Prairie Worth Student Council Advisor. Thank you for that reminder. And I believe you have, except all in one motion, yes.
Okay. I would like a motion to approve the classified, certified, and ECA staff as recommended by Dr. Milliman. Can I get a motion, please?
I'll motion.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you.
I would like to take a moment. Mr. Levine is here this evening with that approval. You did approve Stacy Boyer as a new Lebanon High School Athletic Secretary. It's an incredibly busy and challenging job. In addition to the busy and challenging job of supporting Mr. Levine. Insert laughter here. That was a joke. No, it's a super important position, so he wanted to make sure he had an opportunity to announce her this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Miller and the school board. Appreciate
excited to have Stacy Boyer, who's also a former Lebanon graduate, out of Rome, and to have her in the athletic office coming home and being part of our entire family. She had a crash course in 3 days and everything out of 14 years, so we're put her right to work. She's doing an outstanding job so far, and just wanted to put the face with the name. I know several of you attend events in the athletic office, and hopefully we can have you.
Welcome aboard. Thank you.
Okay, item number 5, consent agenda business matters, the financial report as of October 31st, and the report on the GO bond, and also request for the approval of claims for payment and payrolls from October 29th and November 12th. Mr. Tate.
Yeah, I'll start with 2 pieces of good news. The first one, we have completed recently the extracurricular audit from the State Board of Accounts. It was for the time period of July 1 of 2018 through June 30th of 2020. And there were no findings and no notes. In other words, everything was perfect. So thank you, Kelly Starkey, and everyone that works with her on extracurricular accounts. It is a challenging job with lots of money flowing in and out. And everything was there and done right and appropriate, and it's great to get a squeaky clean audit. So thank you for everyone that's been part of that. Second part of good news, we had a competitive sale for our bond issue, for our GO bond. There were 6 bids submitted. And we had a net interest cost from Fifth Third at 0.53. So that was absolutely amazing. That's due to our Lebanon's financial status, our good audit reports, the state of Indiana's financial status, all contributed to that. So I wanted to share that good news with the board and the community. At this time, our monthly financial report shows these percents expended as of October 31st. Our education fund at 78.92%. Our operation fund at 70.26%. At this time, I'd ask for approval of claims numbered 54382 through 54574 and the payrolls dated October 29th and November 12th. The claims total $1,668,197.03. The payrolls total $1,820,340.83. Total of $3,488,537.86. Ask approval of the claims and the payrolls at this time.
All right, board, I need a motion to approve claims for payment 54382 to 54574 and payrolls for October 29th and November 12th, 2021, as presented by Mr. Tate.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Tate?
No, I just want to say congratulations on the extracurricular activities audit. That's huge.
That
It is.
That's
Great
very
news.
good.
Excellent. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Dr. Milliman, Tiger Pride.
I'm going to ask Ms. Scott to come forward.
Good evening. I'm excited tonight to present to you our classified staff member, Tiger Pride champion for November. It's kind of bittersweet because we're introducing tonight Jada Fulden, and she wants to come on up. Jada is an instructional assistant at Central Elementary and was nominated by Mackenzie LaCrone. A few years ago, had the opportunity to have Jada as a cadet teacher at Harney, where she started her career in education and has continued it now as an employee. So it's kind of exciting to recognize her for a multitude of reasons. So as Mackenzie shared, Jada comes to us from Central every day, prepared and excited to work with our students. She's established positive and caring relationships with students and staff and is always willing to step in and help wherever needed. Jada is currently in school to become an educator, and she utilizes best practices as she is learning in school with all the students she works with. When she's asked to fill in and disrupt her schedule last minute, she goes and does so with enthusiasm. She collaborates with teachers and administration to ensure her decisions are always student-centered. We're lucky and honored to have Jada at Central and look forward to watching her continue to grow in her educational career. So congratulations. Dr. Nolan has that. Did she just?
Number 7 item, superintendent announcements and celebrations.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Willamette.
Yeah, I'm going to have a few, and then we're going to turn it over to you for a resolution. Wanted to take a moment to congratulate some of our Lebanon High School musicians. Aaron Carter, Sam Piper, and Ben Ward were selected by the Indiana Jazz Educators Association All-District Jazz Event, where Ben earned first chair and is a trombone player for that group, and Aaron second chair trumpet, and Sam is the only bass guitarist that made it into that event. So congratulations to them. It's well deserved. Oliver Hutchison, I think Mrs. Hutchison, you might know him.
Okay, yeah.
Auditioned and has been selected to perform in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade with the Macy's Great American Marching Band. So that's exciting. I don't know if you get to travel and enjoy that with them, but
Not. My
that's
husband
quite an
does.
honor and what a neat thing to see on Thanksgiving morning. So that'll be fun in the Hutchison household. Connor Bigler auditioned and was announced as the first alternate to play in New York City's Carnegie Hall with students from around the world that auditioned for the event. Connor earned this as a spot as an alternate, but he will be traveling with them and being able to rehearse with that group. So what a neat opportunity to perform in that historic hall in New York City. So we have a couple folks traveling east here in the next few weeks. We had 23 athletes that were named All-Conference and Sagamore Conference. Hopefully you got a chance to see some of the social media posts, and that's a super proud of those young men and women. I wanted to take a moment to thank all of our schools, all our 6 schools, for the outstanding Veterans Day honor that they shared with our veterans. They have to get creative in this new challenging time, but our schools did that, and just very proud of that. I think I shared this weekend some videos and some social media posts from folks on that. And then finally, I wanted to remind folks that Shrek the Musical is happening this weekend, Friday and Saturday at 7 o'clock, Sunday at 2. We have 97 of our high school, I don't know, it could be high school, middle school, and elementary. I don't know how far down it goes for this musical. There's 97 students that are involved in this production, so I encourage everyone to come out and support the students and see a great production. That's all I have for my announcements today.
Okay. Want to read this retirement resolution?
Yes, and then we do have a retirement resolution. It's an opportunity for Mr. Gould, if he's here with us this evening. I see him in the audience. Why don't you come on up, Bob?
I'll read this resolution as Mr. Gould is coming up. This resolution, adopted on the 16th day of November, 2021, by the Board of School Trustees of the Lebanon Community School Corporation of Lebanon, Boone County, Indiana, witnesseth, whereas Robert Gould, a professional educator of this school corporation, retired with honor from that position at the end of the 2021-2022 school year, and whereas he has, during his distinguished career, rendered skilled and professional instructional leadership to the many pupils whom he has served, and whereas those accomplishments have reflected credit upon himself, the educational profession, and this school corporation, and upon our entire community, now therefore the Board of the School Trustees does hereby resolve that the most sincere thanks, appreciation, and gratitude are extended to Robert Gould upon this occasion for distinguished and meritorious services rendered, and further, that best wishes are conveyed herewith for his continuing health and happiness, that he might enjoy his new career of retirement. Congratulations.
Congratulations, enjoy.
I'll break the awkward silence and just say that in my short time here, Mr. Gould, I enjoy coming to the high school just so I can, as you know, I kind of wander down that English hallway quite a bit, and love stopping into your classroom. The rapport you have with your students, passion you bring every day to your students is inspiring. That's what we want all of our young educators to aspire to be, and you know, you certainly will not be forgotten, and you've left a legacy here, and we're just so thankful for that.
I appreciate the opportunity I had a number of years ago to come here. Principal Vic Combs gave me the phone call, and it was one of the happiest days of my life, because from the moment I walked into this building, it felt like home, and it has been home. Thousands of kids through the years, 3 of them, including my own, and They're proud graduates at Harney Elementary, Lebanon Middle School, Lebanon High School, took advantage of the great opportunities they had. We have a very great corporation. We have an outstanding building here with tons of opportunities. I think our school is the perfect size in terms of you're not just handed things, but you have the chance to do something and be somebody special. And as you mentioned, the kids in the musical and in the band department, our athletes, all our extracurriculars, just so many opportunities. And I feel blessed to have been a small part of the lives of thousands of people. Thank you very much.
We are now at the comments from the public. I would just like to reiterate before we begin this section on the agenda that we have a policy that governs conduct at our meetings. It's policy 167.3. This as was stated by Mrs. Keith, a meeting in public for the purpose of conducting school board business, not a public meeting. So I will reiterate the points of that policy. No one is permitted to speak from the floor. If you wish to make public comments, you must sign in at the start of the meeting and be recognized to speak. Please do not direct your comments to any one individual or ask questions of the board members or administration. You can always email us or call Dr. Milliman. When you introduce yourself, state your name and address and what you wish to speak about. Everyone will have a total of 3 minutes to speak. So we have allotted 27 minutes for public comment. And above all, let's remember to be respectful. So the first person signed up to speak is Karen Trotter, and then Patrick Elmore will be next, if you could be ready to come up when Mrs. Trotter is finished.
Hi, everybody. All right, is this on?
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you for letting me speak. My name's Karen Trotter. I live in Whitestown. Is it okay not to have the address since this is recorded and live on YouTube?
We have it recorded here.
Right.
We got it.
Okay, excellent. My sons and I are fairly new to the school district. We're going on our third year here. I have a boy in honors in high school. He's in the band. I have a student in middle school, and we appreciate the quality education that Lebanon provides. I'm here because of the mandates. I believe, like so many, that mask wearing in school should be optional, or there should be an opt-out letter for parents. Serious illness or death from COVID in children is extremely small. Excuse me, I was coughing earlier. COVID is less of a threat to children than accidents or the common flu. The survival rate of children who do get COVID is 99.9%. Everyone on this board has my email, so if you want my medical sources, I'd be happy to email them to you. So who are we protecting when making children wear masks? If teachers are vaccinated, then why put this burden on our children? I also did research and found article after article about the long-term effects to kids who are forced to wear masks. And without a doubt, the list of issues are long. And if you care about the children in this community, then why would you do this to them? When masking is enforced, communication between students and teachers is limited. Children lose the experience of nonverbal communication. Smiling becomes less recognizable. Negative emotions are ignored. Education is stressful enough dealing with classes, studying, extra activities, social media, and classmates. Do we really want to keep adding another layer of stress, strain, and distraction for the students? Adults have no reason to put their safety ahead of the children. I would assume that anyone who works for the school corporation that wanted the vaccine got the vaccine. If so, why are we still wearing masks? I'm worried that not only will this drag on through December, but January and February as well. And finally, I would like to say that the school board members are elected. They do work for the communities. Not anything that isn't obvious, but parents are not the enemy. All these parents you see here tonight took their time out of their evening schedules to drive to this meeting, and I want everyone to keep that in mind. Thank you.
My name is Patrick Elmore. I live at 465 Indigo Blue Boulevard in Whitestown. Public comment was ended at the October 19th board meeting due to 10 seconds of clapping. A letter was sent out 3 days later reaffirming actions taken by the board. The following is an excerpt from that letter. The board had been contacted by stakeholders indicating a desire to speak at the meeting, but due to clapping and cheering of attendees are elected to refrain from doing so due to feeling intimidated by the possibility that the clapping and cheering would turn to inappropriate reactions and admonishment. Additionally, while some may believe clapping and cheering is not disruptive, the fear of such behaviors devolving in unruly and chaotic actions is not an unfounded or hypothetical fear. There are a couple problems with this. You say this is not an unfounded or hypothetical fear. The events you are describing are imaginary. They never happened. The scenario you propose is 100% hypothetical. You are worried about protecting people who are afraid to express their opinions because they are worried about something that has never happened. You're more worried about that than you are protecting the ability of people who are not afraid to stand up and voice their opinion. Attempting to silence public expression of support is not a good look. It reeks of insecurity. I understand that you may find a few seconds of clapping to be annoying, but acting like it is a legitimate reason to silence the public is preposterous. You want to silence your critics, and clapping was your ticket to do so. You know the policies you've put in place are unpopular and don't want to be reminded of that. There are many examples of governments and other entities implementing strategies of censorship and silencing voices of opposition. When have these people ended up on the right side of history? They haven't. I cannot imagine why you would think it will work out differently for you this time. I'm not sure what your motivations are at this point. You have chosen to disregard the evidence all around you when it comes to the policies that are negatively affecting our children. The most glaring questions go completely unaddressed. At the last meeting, you were issued a thinly veiled threat that you may be charged with a Class B misdemeanor every day if you were in an act of policy outside of state mask and close contact quarantine guidelines. If this is the case, why are other schools throughout the state being allowed to operate with policies outside of state guidelines without consequence? Why would we be punished for enacting the same policies? There have been statements made by the Indiana Department of Health as well as the Johnson County Department of Health plainly stating that Indiana is a home rule state, indicating that local government bodies ultimately have authority to do what is best for the community. Why do people within the public health establishment keep repeating this if it has no basis? Mr. Hendricks is the only member of the board that is willing to ask common sense questions about these policies, like, if this is about public health, why do we all have to wear masks? If this is about public health, how does it make sense for extracurricular activities to be excluded? Everyone else on the board values self-preservation above everything else. You are unwilling to do what is best for our students if it could result in getting slapped on the wrist. One thing has become abundantly clear over the past 20 months. School board elections are one of the most important elections for parents. Having a board largely occupied by members who
Your
value
time is
putting
over,
best
Mr. Elmore.
to themselves than
Excuse
anything
me, your time is up.
is not a situation I'm going to let happen again.
Mrs. Elmore, you are next, and then Tim Byer is after that.
Hello, my name is Erin Elmore. I live at 4665 Indigo Blue Boulevard. So asking questions, questioning answers, and asking more questions is the fundamental practice used for critical thinking. When a broad fact, like a novel virus, leads to rules instead of questions, we get problems. This is because rules are not a response to a question. An answer is a response to a question. From the answer, then rules may be extracted, but rules without answers do not resolve any issues. For example, at the beginning of the 2021 school year, the rules became the problem, and a new rule was needed to fix the first rule. Specifically, when quarantining healthy children became an issue, we patched it with a mask mandate. We created a new rule to fix the old rule and did not resolve anything. To step outside of this endless cycle of rules fixing rules, we must ask questions. When we stop asking questions, we stop thinking. Our reasoning becomes flawed and we make faulty conclusions. Some of the most problematic and undeveloped questions include, do we follow quarantining and close contact rules or follow mask mandate rules? That's a false choice. Do we follow state and health department guidelines or be punished by law with misdemeanors? Is that coercion? I don't know. Do the state and health department guidelines only apply to in-school hours? Just puzzling altogether. To date, these questions have been answered in no uncertain terms by the school board by means of rules and mandates. Yet the question hangs in the air. Are the answers satisfactory? No, the answers are not satisfactory because they aren't answers. There are rules that take the place where answers should be. We need to answer the questions about the problem before we create new rules. The problem is still COVID-19. That's still it. The school board's basic question starts with, How does quarantining impact kids? Which leads to their next question, how do we fix that problem? Starting here will lead to many different, but my basic question should be, how does COVID-19 impact kids? Starting here will lead to many different questions, different answers, different rules, and most importantly, a different educational experience for our kids. When we ignore basic questions, we stop critically thinking. The board has stopped thinking, and the community has followed. It is never too late to reanalyze the problem, especially if that means making life better for someone else. We know that the answer is not to bury the question. The answer is questioning, and questioning everything, always.
All right, Mr. Tim Byer. And then after that will be, sorry, I can't read the first name, Taylor, maybe? Can't read the first name. Looks like it.
Good evening. My name's Tim Byer. I have a high schooler. This is the fourth time I've written or spoken to you. Previously, I've informed you about the meaning of the states and federal constitutions and your duty to uphold them. Parents have done the same thing through legal notices, educating you on what they mean and asking you to correct your actions. After all, what you're doing is unlawful. Government cannot invent authority for itself through legislature or otherwise that was never delegated to it by the people. I sent a rebuttal to Dr. Milliman's discussion on video detailing this after you ran out of the last meeting. In fact, a different section of the statutory code that Dr. Milliman referenced in the last meeting reiterates this same point. IC 1-1-2-1, Hierarchy of Law. The law governing this state is declared to be, first, the Constitution of the United States and of this state. Second, all statutes of the General Assembly of the state in force, not inconsistent with such constitutions. Third, all statutes of the United States in force relating to subjects which Congress has power to legislate for the states and not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States. Fourth, the common law of England, not inconsistent with the first, second, and third specifications of this section. Common law is simple and based on natural rights, which our constitutions guarantee. What is not mentioned, mandates, policies, requirements, rules, codes, etc. These are all a fiction of law. A real simple summary using masks as an example is if I don't have the right to force you to wear a mask, then you don't have the right to force anyone else to wear a mask either. It's no different than you trying to tell me what I can eat because it's supposedly unhealthy. People have individual rights in this country and you swear to secure them. It's your duty. You are obligated to act to do so. When government acts outside the constitutions, the people's individual rights are not secure. There are no collective rights. That's what goes on in monarchies and communist countries where government rules over its people. That's not what we do here. Perhaps you could have claimed ignorance previously, but now you have no excuse. You have been informed on multiple occasions. Make an effort to do your job and pick up the phone and talk to the state and ask them some tough questions because they don't have that right either or the authority to try to make you do it. If you're not willing to do these simple things, then step down and let someone else take your place that will. Now, I want to briefly address your action at the last meeting because it was not only unlawful, it was flat out absurd and lacked common sense. You recessed the meeting because parents were clapping, yet there was clapping earlier in the same meeting as well as tonight, and there was no objection then, nor should there have been. Your 27-minute time policy on public comment is also unlawful. The Parent Bill of Rights prepared by Todd Rikita states that we have the right and expectation to question and address our child school officials and school board members at publicly designated meetings with proper notice of the meeting provided. This is consistent with the constitutions which state that the people have their unrestrained right of assemblage and petition to instruct their representatives and for redress of grievances. This was also confirmed by the Supreme Court in New York Times versus Sullivan in 1964, where they stated, debate on public issues shall be uninhibited, robust, and wide open. Anyone has a right to clap after anyone else's comments, and everyone here has a right to speak, regardless of how long we are here. If you run out of here again, you can tender your resignation immediately so someone else can do the job you aren't willing to do.
Mr. Bob Taylor. And after Mr. Taylor is Erica Shepard.
Thank you, Madam President, Madam Vice President, members of the board. My name is Bob Taylor. I reside in Center Township in Lebanon at 2110 Dale Court. I've been a resident of the community now for almost 27 years. To put that in perspective, Mr. Gould had dark hair when I first came here. I come this evening simply for two purposes: to express my appreciation and my thanks to the superintendent and his administrative team and to the school board. As a resident of Lebanon, I am now in a unique position with my current job to have a perspective of state issues in public education from Gary to Evansville, from Terre Haute to Richmond. These are challenging times. There are more opinions than there are solutions. But yet, this community school board and administration continues to make me proud. You make me proud not only because of the work you do, with the focus you have. It is not an easy task. As I said, there are many opinions, and no one of us can say what's right or what's wrong. We can only do what we believe is best for our children. And as I've made observations around the state, and I've made attendance at many school board meetings, and I've watched the board meetings here, I can simply reassure you and the members of our community that Lebanon is exemplary in how they conduct the business. In tough times, in challenging times, in uncertain times, you've continued to focus on what's best for children. The opinion of what's best for children will always be there for discussion, and I'm simply proud to be a member of a community where that opinion is brought to this governing body, where this governing body listens to those opinions, takes those opinions, considers them, and continues to move forward in promoting the education for our community. So I compliment the leadership of Dr. Milliman in conjunction with the governance of this school board, and I applaud the work you continue to do. It's not easy, and your job is no easier today than it will be next month or the month to come. So as a member of this community, I thank you for your effort, your dedication, and your commitment. Secondly, on behalf of the Taylor family, my brother Sam, my brothers David, our wives, and our children, I want to give my sincere appreciation and thanks to this board for your recognition and very beautiful floral arrangement that you provided at my mother's funeral. I don't know if many of you can remember, my mother was a 42-year educator. She was as proud of Lebanon Community Schools because her son used to work here. She sat through ball games and she sat through graduations. She sat through school board meetings. And she continually reminded me that I was blessed to be a member of the Lebanon Community School family. And so with that in my heart, I sincerely thank you for the recognition you extended, unnecessary, but sincerely appreciated. So having said that, I wish you the best in your endeavors. I thank you for what you do on behalf of children, and I wish you to continue moving forward. Thank you very much.
Ms. Shepard, Erica Shepard, and then Alyssa Wilson is our last speaker.
Good evening, board. My name is Erica Shepard. My address is 3394 Firethorn Drive, Whitestown, Indiana. At the beginning of the year, I made the decision to withdraw my child from Lcsc and begin homeschooling due to what I felt was a lack of transparency by this board. I am here tonight as a Boone County resident and an extra voice for the parents who, for whatever reason, may not be able to homeschool or public school is their only option. My concern tonight is the mask mandate that our children have been expected to follow for way too long. After listening to several meetings, it's clear to me that there are several parents that have expressed concerns over learning difficulties that have been caused by or worsened by the mask mandate. Yet their plea to this board has been completely ignored. First, I would like to say a quick thank you to Mr. Hendricks. Although he stated himself that he does not yet have children, he believes that parents should have the overall say of their kids' safety. In these uncertain times, you have no idea what that means to us, so thank you very much. As for the rest of the board, shame on you.
Excuse me, you are not allowed to direct your comments to any specific board member.
I'm not the only one that's done it tonight, okay?
I'm reminding you.
Is this cutting into my time?
I will give you your 5 seconds.
Thank you. For the rest of you, shame on you. In a 3-1 vote last month, you chose to extend the mandate. You claim the reasoning behind making our children wear masks is to keep our families and our children safe. I call bull. If you thought that was truly the case, you would practice what you preach. But according to your social media accounts, you have not done that. You have been attending Boone County orchestras at the courthouse with no masks. You have been taking lunch selfies with your kids with no mask, wedding dress shopping with no mask, going to Holiday World, attending sporting events, moving your children into schools, and even giving faculty presentation to all Lcsc schools, all 6 of them, with no masks. If you can't enforce this in your own families, why should you do it to ours? Also, at the last meeting, there was a discussion on the policy of masking extracurriculars. 2 takeaway quotes from that conversation would be, I would be okay with giving our admin and coaching staff the ability to make the decision on a case-by-case basis. I would be okay with giving them that discretion if they feel like it needs to be made. Another quote would be, I would agree to provide the admin the ability, the extracurriculars on a situation basis to be able to move forward. So my question to the board is, why is it okay for you your admin, your coaches to make these discretionary decisions on masking our kids, but we aren't afforded the same right. And I ask you once again to reconsider masking our kids in school because we deserve this. Last time I checked, making health decisions for our family wasn't a luxury, but a God-given right. And I do have screenshots for anybody who wants them.
Time is up.
Social media.
And our last speaker is Alyssa Wilson.
Alyssa Wilborn, Lebanon, Indiana.
I apologize.
For what?
I said your last name was Wilson. I apologize. I don't have my glasses on.
That's okay. So I had spoke to you guys before. I think I've emailed every one of you. Trey, I tend to leave you out of the emails because I feel like you more appreciate
Let's
freedom.
not direct our comments
Okay,
to
I know.
specific-
You already said that. And when he earlier told you guys how wonderful you're doing, you didn't.
Well, you
tell
can
him
direct
that.
it to the whole board,
Yeah,
just
so
not a
I'll
specific
so
person.
I expressed my feelings towards everyone and how I was feeling about the way you guys were, utilizing what you had at hand and what was happening with the mandates and the quarantines. So my concern today is that I'm asking for maybe a policy where that the parents can decide and actually like opt in or opt out. And maybe this is like a discussion that you all could have with the health department. So, we're kind of done doing the house arrest for the kids that are healthy, that have already maybe had COVID, or they're just not symptomatic, so that they could just go back to school and we monitor symptoms, just like normal, just like every other cold that they have. We let these kids drive to school. There's bigger chances of kids dying from a car wreck than there is from this cold. But we still allow them to drive to school. We haven't taken that privilege away. So why take away the privilege of going to school because you've been exposed, potentially, correct? So my concern today is that we give the parents the option, hey, we obviously know like all these kids went to school at the end of the year, nobody wore a mask, maybe like 5 or 10%. Totally acceptable. Do whatever you want, whatever you see fit. But clearly like the parents were not on board with that. They put the mask on because you all have mandated it, whether they've had COVID, they've had the injection, whatever. So let's take the mask off. Let's inform the parents, hey, this is a potential exposure, watch for symptoms, and do as you see fit. And that's it. It's very simple. Again, I've emailed you all the studies, all the information. I want to make out a point that you collectively, if you disagree or if you're the one that maybe is running this meeting, if the time were to go over or near over, depending on the person speaking and their view, depends on if they get shut down early. And so I'm asking for resignation from Mrs. Hutchison, Mr. Parks, Mrs. Jones, Dr. Milliman, and Elizabeth Keith. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, that is the end of our public comment for this evening. If you would still like to share thoughts or questions with the board, you are welcome to email us and also Dr. Milliman, or call Dr. Milliman at any time. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 9, request approval of Lcsc Crisis Intervention Plan. Ms. Diane Stott.
Good evening. You probably remember that we've had a crisis intervention plan in place for several years. This particular one has been revised a couple of times since 2017. We had a good deal of training along with local law enforcement, facilitated primarily by INWEL, but many mental health agencies came together to provide that training for us. And we decided to take some time this year to do a little review of the plan. There aren't any significant changes in the content of the plan, but there were some tweaks in the wording to provide some clarity. In talking to Chief Smith earlier near the start of the school year, we recognized that we just needed to provide some clarity, but also review the plan with our administrators. So we have done that during an administrative team meeting recently with all the principals and assistant principals. And the plan that we had before you is the one we would like to recommend for your approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I think you've had this maybe to review in advance. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to help answer those.
Board, I need a motion to approve the LCSC Crisis Intervention Plan.
I'll make the motion.
Motion.
Go ahead, Liz.
Yes. Ms. Keith?
Or I'll second, whatever you want
Oh,
to do.
okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Ms. Scott about the Crisis Intervention Plan? And so the relationship with Inwell is still very strong?
Absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely,
great.
yes.
Great.
We rely on their expertise quite a bit in these areas, because it's a little bit out of our area of expertise, but we
Sure.
need them.
Right. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Okay, thank you, Ms.
Thank you so much.
Item B is a request approval for LHS Camptown overnight trip. Mr. Martin.
You each have a letter. Supplement to the letter, I have a document that came along with the request with several comments about. I was excited as I read through here. The group's going to McCormick's Creek. They spend a night, and the point is the certificate track kids with exposure and connection to the community experiences, hands-on, and they'll bring back a few kids in a separate, they'll take 2 buses, so they'll bring one back of those kids who don't spend the night. Does anybody have any questions related to this trip that I might need to answer?
Okay. Can someone make a motion to approve the request for the LHS Camptown overnight trip?
All motion.
Thank you. Someone make a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Martin. Item C, request approval of stipend for employees obtaining a commercial driver's license. Mr. Tate.
Yes, at this time, I'd ask board approval for the ability to issue a $300 stipend to any of our maintenance, grounds, custodial staff that would obtain their CDL and be available to act as an emergency bus driver. We are on the edge every day with being able to run every route, and hoping that this would give us more of a backup system with some of our current employees. So asking permission to be able to do that and promote it with that staffing.
Okay. Board, I need a motion to approve the request for a stipend for employees who obtain a commercial driver's license.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Tate?
Yeah, I do. Do we also pay for the education or the training to get
Any
that?
expenses that they incur to get their CDL, we do reimburse them for that.
Okay.
Correct.
This is on top of that then?
Yes, sir.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
I just wanted to say this is forward thinking. I
Yes.
think there's several districts that have had issues,
Yes.
one more than others recently as of today.
Yeah.
So thank you for that forward thinking. And
And approximately how many do you think would be good to kind of have as backup?
Well, it depends on how many I go to personally and grab their left hand and put it behind their back. I'm just joking. We will put it out there. We'll make sure they're all aware of it, and hopefully we can get some more licensed and be available.
That would be
Appreciate your
great.
support on that.
Yeah, I was just asking the question because I know it's a lot more expensive than that stipend to go
Yes.
get this,
Correct.
to get the training. So that's good to know too. We are paying for that.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very
Good
much.
luck with that. I hope you can find some.
And so does Becky.
I bet, especially as we go into the winter. Number 10 is the capital improvement planning and school funding update. Dr. Milliman.
Thank you. I'm attempting to connect to the screens here. I'm following my instructions, Mr. Martin. Oh, wait, I'm in the wrong spot. One moment, please. Maybe I'm in... Gotcha. Should I go to community room 3 or community room 2? Let's try this again. I think I had... Okay, all right, very good. Thank you very much.
If we go 3, we'll lose Liz.
We don't want to lose Liz.
Understood. Thank you. I'll try to go quickly. As you know, we try to provide updates in each of the board meetings about our capital improvement planning. There'll be a little bit of new information this evening and entertain discussion and questions, of course, from the board about that. Our next meeting, our work session, special session on December 9th, and then our regular meeting in December. We'll bring professional partners forward to talk a little bit more in detail about construction cost estimates and putting some dollar figures to what we're discussing tonight. Just wanted to remind our folks that what we're working toward in this vision is that we'll have a 10-year plan between 2025 and 2035 to deal with our capital improvement needs, safety and security, personnel and programming. As I always like to show this slide to remind folks, it's not a permanent solution. We're looking for that 10-year solution to meet our needs. Important to talk about the community feedback that we've started in this 18-month process. We're in the second phase at this point, and the board will be asked to make some important decisions here in the next 2 to 3 months that would move us into the next phase, but we have met with several stakeholder groups and continue to do that. Have another stakeholder group meeting this week. Then once the board makes some decisions on which direction we want to go, then we'll engage even more community groups over the next several months. So just a review of what the conclusions of our stakeholder meetings and our professional partner work is. The conclusion was that it is in our best interest to stay with a 4 elementary format in this district, update Stokes and Harney, increase our capacity at Perry Worth to deal with the growth in that part of our community, build a new elementary, and repurpose Central as potentially early childhood and other district resources, addressing safety and security at the middle school and high school and other, I'll call them minor renovations and updates as compared to the elementary, and address our I guess I would say that outlive the useful life not only at Central but also our transportation center. It's time for that upgrade, which would precipitate then needing to upgrade our maintenance building as well. The demographer professional partner that we've worked with has advised us that with our growth pattern to anticipate growth that would exceed 1% a year, as you see more neighborhoods being constructed in our communities, as well as now some more turnover of some existing homes, as you're starting to see throughout the community as well, which will drive some of our student enrollment. Our facility assessment was very, very thorough. The board's received many documents on that. Our facilities are in good condition, which gives you great options as a board to move forward, and that Central really has outlived its useful life as a modern K-5 building. Not a big surprise there, but certainly as we're looking forward in that 10-year solution. So for our capital improvement needs, there are 4 real buckets, if you will, of needs, is to increase that K-5 student capacity in this first 10 years, address safety and security of our facilities. This would be upgrading cameras, lighting, other safety and security measures from a facility standpoint, academic areas as well as our physical education and athletic areas, and of course, address and make sure we're sufficient size for that growth in the next 10 years. We also want to make sure we're touching all buildings and touching all of our schools through this capital projects. Middle school and high school through this 10-year span, capacity should not be an issue for us based on what we know within our growth patterns. We really want to focus on the capacity in that K-5. So this plan and capital improvement plan as it stands would be to increase our current operational capacity of our elementary schools from approximately 1,660 to 2,215 students. So very close to the size of a new elementary school, still under 4 elementary roofs. Under those priorities, safety and security, wages, salaries, and benefits for our teachers and classified staff. We want to elevate our STEM education opportunities for students, behavioral supports as part of our crisis planning, as Mrs. Scott discussed this evening. Maintain our instructional coaches that we have placed in our elementary schools here beginning this year, be able to sustain that in other grant-funded positions. We know that the city of Lebanon, we're thankful for their support that they've given us over the past several years, but we know that that support for our school police department is now going away. So that has to be our number one priority, is to keep officers in our school buildings. So that will be a centerpiece of the plan as well from a programming standpoint. So our priorities, as we've laid them out: safety and security always first, our elementary preschool programming, our middle school and high school transportation and maintenance center, kind of all in that same bucket together. And then if we have room, we'll take a look at that multi-purpose facility here at the high school. I just wanted to touch on this. This is going back to one of our first stakeholder meetings. I thought it'd be good to kind of review that for the board and the community this evening. You may remember in that stakeholder meeting back, I think in January, where we met with our stakeholder group, that there's a few myths and realities that we brought to light in those meetings. I think this is an important time to review those. You know, one myth is that local property taxes pay for teacher salaries. The reality is that instructional staff and school administration is funded by state per pupil funding. The funding of teacher salaries was removed from local school boards back in 2009, and it was taken over from the state. So the state legislature decided that they would make those decisions for the local school boards as far as funding for instructional staff. School boards can raise taxes to an amount necessary to meet expenses in public schools. We're the main beneficiaries of new fundings that we have just received, and we're very thankful for the politicians and legislators should tout the K-12 funding, because it was a large influx of funds this year, and we're very thankful for it. However, the reality is that public schools were on the minority side of all public funds that were allocated for K-12 education. The larger portion was provided for vouchers and the charter school side. So there is a myth and reality to that, and we'll show some of that as we move funding. There's another myth, is that school funding is kept up with consumer price index. It has at times met the inflation mark when we've received additional funds from the state. However, going back to that 2008-2009, when the state took over control of funding of schools' education fund, they also cut, in the middle of that budget biennium, $300 million to public schools. So school districts had budgeted in a 2-year cycle, as we do from a 2-year budget from the state. In the middle of those 2 years, the budgets were cut $300 million to public schools, and we all remember why that took place in 2007, 2008, 2009, but that was removed from our budgets in mid-budget. So even though dollars have increased to public schools over a period of time, that initial $300 million cut was never restored. So you're playing catch-up from that point in time. Professor Hicks from Ball State University, who you may see publications from oftentimes in the Indy Star and editorials, has put out in his analysis that in 2021 we're really operating at around 2012 dollars if you're adjusting for the consumer price index, because we still have not backfilled that $300 million hole. So we're still playing catch up. So that's just a myth and reality, that you see the dollars going up every year, but you're always playing catch up from 2009. There's a rule that only public schools in the three school systems that the state supports, vouchers, charter schools, and public schools are required that 85% of the education fund should go to classrooms, and that it's protecting instructional spending. I put this on here because in Lebanon community schools, our curriculum is delivered in grades 6 through 12 through technology. Computers, the laptops, the iPads, etc. You can't pay for equipment from the education fund. So for us, it's an education expense that cannot be paid from the education fund. So is it really 85%? And these are the rules that we have to play by. So just a few myths, few realities that are good to remind folks of. So just on a couple slides, just to remind people that it's not, that local property taxes are not used for education fund expenses, and unless there's an operating referendum perhaps in place at school districts who have passed it and allocated monies for that, and no state funding is provided for buildings, renovations, and operations. That is funded from local property tax. Just to give you kind of a history, over a 3-year period, the voucher impact to Lebanon Community Schools, that would have been if the vouchers would not be in place, and then you looked at all of the public school districts across the state of Indiana and put that money back into the pot for public schools, it could have meant approximately $800,000 more funding over a 3-year period for Lebanon schools. Over the course of a time span from 2015, there's $2.2 million that could have potentially been allocated to Lebanon schools to fill some of that hole. So this next slide is kind of the first time that we've talked about actual amounts of where we are today and what the board may begin to consider moving forward. So that's what this slide shows, is that we should see a little bit of a historical tax rate here going back 2019. And I put on the right side of this slide where our current operating referendum is and what that tax rate is. And currently, that's at 28 cents. And as we shared in this board meeting before, that referendum debt will be retired in 2023. So you'll see that tax rate that's projected to drop off in 2023, 2024, as that current operating referendum that is part of the school tax rate operating at 28 cents is paid off. So as you look at potential for the board moving forward, the board could consider a replacement of the current rate. That debt would be paid off, so obviously no longer that rate would be in place, but the board could consider a simple replacement of the current capital referendum that was passed in 2010 at the same tax rate. So that would not change for the taxpayer in that amount. The board may think about considering then an operating referendum, which would address the other items that I've listed this evening: our school police department funding, programming, the STEM education, behavioral supports, salaries, wages, and benefits across the board for certified and classified could be addressed through a operating referendum. This is kind of a hypothetical here on this slide. You could consider perhaps a 15-cent operating referendum to assist with that over the course of 8 years. By law, operating referendums expire in 8 years, and the school boards have to go back to the taxpayers and ask for the taxpayers to reapprove that, if you will. Board, because and Baker Tilly, our financial advisors, will be here in the next regular meeting and also at your work session in December to explain this in much better detail than I can. But in 2010, our assessed valuation that was used for the referendum rate was approximately, Mr. Tate, 2010, you don't recall? It was, if you want to go back, it was, I can tell you today it is about 2.5 billion in assessed valuation, including the TIF districts within our community. And I think it is close to double what it was in 2010. So your impact of your operating referendum and your capital referendum as far as a tax rate for school tax rate for the taxpayers should remain comfortably within that historic range that the board has maintained going back to 2012. That's what this slide kind of shows, is obviously just showing 2023 and 24, but it's showing where that rate drops off and how the board could consider maintaining that same range that you have historically and address both needs for programming as well as capital improvements. This is where we compare to the other Boone County school districts currently. This was the 2021 certified school tax rates. You'll see where we currently compare to Western Boone and Zionsville. So that's really it. I wanted to just kind of bring to the board's attention tonight just some preliminary thoughts about what those amounts may look like, if you may be able to consider. Baker Tilly, our friends from Key Bank, as you are aware, there's underwriters, Skillman Corporation, who's with us this evening, Mr. York is with us this evening. They will bring some cost estimates to you over the next few weeks about what the capital improvements may actually be projected to cost over the construction of those renovations and new construction. And Baker Tilly then can also layer in an operating amount, and then the board can begin to think about what would be a direction you'd want to move forward. So be happy to answer any questions I can at this time and entertain any discussion you may have.
Board, does anyone have any questions or comments? I would just like to say I'm glad to see that every building will be touched in some way. I know we keep great, track of our buildings, maintenance and all of that. But, things need repainted and, after a while with energetic kids. So I'm glad to see that every building will have some improvement.
I think what's get lost sometimes in that is that we talk about what it costs to renovate and construct, but we need to maintain.
Yes.
Right, so it's not only the referendum rate that's currently in place, but it is our operations fund levy that also is part of that overall tax rate. What our taxpayers do not currently have in their school tax rate is the operating referendum as well. So I know the board is attempting to be very mindful and thoughtful about that as taxpayers yourself, and being aware of that, and then also wanting to address these critical needs that we have.
I think another thing to point out, I think you brought it up in your presentation in regards to referendum in TIF districts, that with a referendum, the TIF districts also help fund into that. It's not just the normal tax levy where those funds are then capitalized on
That's
the
correct.
TIF area.
That's correct. But the TIF tax increment financing district properties would pay the same referendum rate as the homeowner under a referendum, which is not currently the case, obviously, for the way it's designed to work.
Correct.
For the normal levy. Now, over time, school districts and other taxing districts within our community begin to realize more tax from the TIF districts as that begins to expire, whether it's a 100% TIF district to start, some are 80%, where maybe the taxing districts that we share with the other 10 taxing districts, there's 11 taxing districts in our school community. We're one of those 11. And there are some taxing TIF districts and properties that may pay 20% to those 11 taxing districts, and then it moves over time. But for a referendum, they would pay the same rate as the homeowner, so that would actually lower
the rate for the
expense
homeowner.
That's correct. It'd be spread out.
Commercial is also picking up some of that.
That's correct. It would be spread out over more taxpayers that way, yes.
Anyone else have questions or comments? We'll obviously be discussing this a lot more. Thank you, Dr. Milliman. As Dr. Milliman mentioned, we have a special session on December 9th at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then our regular school board meeting on December 14th here in this room at 7 p.m. I would like to thank you all for your time and attention, and wish you all a happy Thanksgiving next week. Meeting adjourned.